one of the things that some entrepreneurs don't learn till later in life is that you never get a memo that says go home. Never get a memo that says spend more time with your wife and your kids. And for me, that cost me one marriage in Silicon Valley. I still remember the moment where my wife at the time said, "What's more important, me or your job?" And as I sat there for about a minute thinking about it, we both kind of realized I had just given her the answer. And luckily, we didn't have any kids, and the divorce was amicable. But in hindsight, it was, I did her a real disservice. I made a choice that I shouldn't. And so by then, I was now, after that divorce, in my mid to late 30s, and had time to watch people I admired greatly, who had been my mentors at work, but watch their kids grow up, ending up hating their parents or turning into horrible kids because their dad, and mostly back then it was male dominant, so it was all dads, had essentially abandoned their family. And I didn't like those outcomes. And so I had kids in my late 30s, and my wife had been the second evangelist at Apple, and also had done some startups, so she understood what the startup business was like. And we made a set of rules that she made it pretty clear I was going to have to abide by if we were going to have children. And we did. I had to be home for dinner every night at 7 and be engaged and at dinner, and I put the kids to bed, and I did. And what the kids never knew is I'd go back to work, or back then the internet had been invented, so I could work online for another 3 or 4 hours. So I was doing the traditional 12 hours a day, but my kids had seen me every night for dinner. Another heuristic was my wife and I would always have a date night, and we never had much money back then, but we invested in babysitters and help. And so there was a series of things, and in fact I wrote a blog post about this, which happened to touch a lot of nerves, is you have to invest as much in keeping your family going as you do in your startup. And if you're not giving it that kind of work, you don't get that back. One of the really important things was somebody asked me, what do you want on your tombstone? You get a choice of he never missed a meeting or he was a great dad. And that was pretty sobering when I had kids. And I decided that I'd rather have he's a great dad. And, the payoff now is my kids are in their 20s and they can't think of anything better for the holidays than coming home and spending it with their parents. That's kind of a nice payoff rather than sorry, we're busy or we're hanging with our friends. Maybe it's to see their mom. I don't know. But I like to think, we would take vacations every year, regardless of what I was doing, and I'd spend 3 weeks, every year with my family. But just remembering you can't get that all in a concentrated period of time. I never missed a major event like a play or, a soccer playoff or whatever. And that required some sacrifices at work. And you know what? The work just kept going on. But the family was really more important. When people ask me, what was the most exciting product of my years as an entrepreneur? I'd say my children and my family. And that surprises a lot of people. And it's a shame it does, because I think that's part of a balanced life.